right, at 6 o'clock, I'll call the regular board meeting for Piedmont Board of Education to order. Do we have a roll call?
Matt. Here. Derek. Not here. Neil here. Jared here. And Lane Jones is not here.
Okay. Flag salute and prayer by Neil Cass.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now we bow our heads. Dear Lord, we gather today with grateful hearts, asking for your wisdom and guidance as we make decisions for all our school district. Please bless our educators, staff, and students with your grace and strength, and grant us the ability to act with fairness, compassion, and integrity. Help us always prioritize our children and community first, and let our words and actions reflect your love and truth. We place this meeting in your hands and trust that you will lead us in all we do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Neil. All right, item 2, public participation. We don't have any.
No.
So we'll skip that. We'll go to item 3, presentations. The 2024-2025 audit report from S&B CPAs and Associates.
This is Amy, and make sure that is on for her. Thank you. Perfect.
Okay, you should have the audit in front of you. This year I don't know if I can't remember if I did last year or not, but I included a summary sheet there in the front that makes this audit a whole lot easier to read, because I know nobody likes to read this thing. But I'm going to just go through that presentation, and if you have questions, I'll take any that you have. Your financial statements are fairly presented with the basis of accounting. You are required to use the regulatory basis, because that's what the State Department of Education says you have to use. So you'll find that opinion on pages 4 through 6. And then you'll find 3 summary schedules up front, which is 7 through 9. If you want to know how I came up with those numbers, those are in the combining financial statements that are later on in the audit, where it's detailed out. In the middle of all that, you'll find your notes to the financial statements, which basically tells you what funds you have, how you can use them, steps we take to do the audit. And then you were required to have 3 reports this year. Since you spent over $750,000 in federal dollars, you have our independent auditor's report. You have the internal control and compliance report, which is on pages 30 and 31. Then the major federal programs report, which is pages 32 and 33. And since you had the major federal programs report, you're required to have the findings and question costs that's related to your federal programs and the financial statements. And then the comments are on 36 through 38, and I'll get to that in just a minute. But if you look at the highlights, I'd like to put what your fund balance was and tell you kind of where you were at June 30th last year. So your general fund had $6,250,000 at June 30th. That was up $806,000 from the year before. Your building fund had $3,203,000. It was down $3,859,000, but you did have some building projects that you did during the year, and that's why that one went down the way it did. Your child nutrition had $1,118,000. That's down $70,000 from the year before. Your sinking fund had $12,119,000. That's up $2,024,000, which that's a good thing, because that means you're collecting the taxes that's needed to pay your debt. So we don't have a lot of people that's not paying their property taxes. Your bond fund had $949,000. That one's down $1,700,000. Bond funds are one of those that the year you get the money, it goes up, and then just after that it goes down because you're spending the money. Your gifts fund still had $1,701, and your activity fund has $1,590,000 in it. That's up $312,000. At June 30th, you did have $21,830,000 in debt, and with that you will pay $2,177,000 in interest. Now, in July of 24, you had $1,031,000 come in for federal. That was money you spent in June of 24, but you didn't receive it until July. And then in July of 25, you had 372,000 that came in. Now the comments, and Jennifer and Mr. Eichelberger could attest, it was a clean audit. There was no findings, and they know how much I hate saying that.
Yeah.
I've told them I would never give them one, and I gave them one this year. But no, they do a great job out there in the business office.
So I always ask this, I guess we get an A today?
You do get an A today.
Okay.
Yeah, I imagine that your pride was a little bit hurt. Auditor's audit, they find something.
I'm telling you, it's not like me. I like to at least nitpick them on something, but I couldn't even do that this year.
So Jennifer, I think for 2 years in a row, we had an audit finding. I guess we're cleared and we no longer have it. That's a good job.
Like I said, it kills me. But if you do have questions, they do have my cell phone, or they have the office number. I'll take any calls anytime if you have questions. If you dive into it and you see something that you just want an explanation on.
Thank you very much. Good job, Jennifer. Way to
Yes,
go.
thank you.
Good
Great
job.
job.
Thank you,
And your
Amy.
team.
job.
I know it
I know it's
takes a team, everybody in the room, really.
Yeah. Except
Making sure
me.
that we follow the rules and we do the things that we're supposed to do. Eddie.
Yeah. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, the next presentation is by Zonda Demographics.
This is Hudson Huff, and he's with Zonda Demographics, and he's going to go through the findings of their demographic study that they just completed a couple weeks ago.
On. Testing. Okay, very good. Clicker's on and mic's good. Okay. Well, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you this evening and talk through the demographic report, and then we'll tie that into the attendance boundary information as well. So briefly, we are Zonda Demographics. Again, we get a chance to track housing activity from across the country. So we not only do we track kind of what's happening within the region, but it gives us a better understanding of all the different things that are happening in the greater market. So I'll tie in a little bit of what's happening in the overall housing market as I talk about what's happening specifically within the region. When we look at the overall marketplace, we've kind of got things broken into thirds right now. So we still have regions of the country that still are actually performing well, still a lot of population movement. We're also seeing housing activity that's really kind of outperforming what it's been the last few years. We have a few markets where we do still about, kind of middle of the road. And then we've got about a little over 20% of the markets that are truly underperforming. Where we are seeing some struggling and some softening in some of those markets. So as we've seen, we do see about 60% of the builders that are offering some mortgage buy downs to try to make that more manageable for young buyers that are coming into the market. And then, we do still see, when we look at the overall picture, there are some challenges that are in the marketplace. Again, some of those higher interest rates have complicated things for quite some time. And so we are kind of seeing some shifts and changes and discussions about what may be happening as we get to the back half of this year with some potential changes with the Federal Reserve Chair. But we're still waiting to see what that may look like. So we would anticipate things staying fairly consistent for at least the next several months until we get towards the back half of the year. Overall, and I don't know why that's quite, there we go. Thank you. This just references the housing market as a whole related to the number of sales in the district. You can kind of see where you've been. Again, when you take into consideration what those interest rates were, when you look at that 2020, 2021 timeframe, interest rates were those incredibly great 2.5% range. But then we saw in that March timeframe of 2022 was when those interest rates started to hike it to a pretty significant degree. And you can see potentially kind of what we saw with many of the builders as they went through 2023 into the year that we're at now, where some of those sales have kind of fallen off just because of that impact of that interest rate. But again, still fairly solid when you look at areas and communities of similar size. still a tremendous amount of activity over the last several years compared to where we were kind of prior to the pandemic. Overall, housing prices do matter. That has complicated things. When you take a look at what's happened with the new home prices, you'll see kind of where we were back in 2015. The average new home price was around $230,000. That has increased to that $337,000 range. And then we've seen a lot of existing home sales prices go up significantly over the last several years. So part of that ties to the amount of land that's sometimes tied into those home purchases. But then we've also seen kind of, again, with many people kind of locked in at those lower rates, not as much inventory as far as existing inventory. So some of those that are selling at higher prices than what they have been the last several years. So you can see a pretty significant increase over the last several years when you look at those existing home prices. Now we'll talk about the demographics, the amount of population increase that's taken place. So when you think about the state and the amount of population increase that you've seen over the last really 10 to 15 years, have seen increases a little over 100,000 residents over the last 4 to 5 years. Again, we've also seen increases specifically within the county, and then you're also seeing just specifically with what's happened within the school system, not quite about 4,000 residents have been added over that same general time frame. And we'll break it down into that greatest generation, and we'll talk about those numbers. But really what we're going to focus on traditionally when we're breaking down that generational gap is we want to look at kind of your millennials, those that are currently your families right now. So about 24% of your overall population is where your families are, where your students are coming from. But then we kind of want to have an understanding of that breakdown of that following generation that are going to be coming back behind them over the next 10 to 15 years that are going to be your new families. And so you can still see a pretty significant population that's there. So that should be sustainable and also see some growth over the next several years. So there's also kind of a breakdown of wealth, housing affordability, and diversity. So those are all broken down by national averages. So wealth index references kind of the national average is 100. So it's a little bit higher than what the national average is. Again, median household income with 2 contributors, typically in most households, it's around 102,000. Median age is at that 37.1. And again, just kind of a breakdown about the education background of those that are in that adult age group. And then we always evaluate kind of the commuters. So again, with Piedmont area, there's a lot of commuters that are coming back and forth. So that shows at least about 16 to 17% of your overall community that are driving at least 7+ hours a week. So it's nice to not have to drive that much for anyone that's not doing that, but there is a tremendous amount of commuting that's taking place within the area. When we look at what's happening just with the overall student population, you can kind of see what that number looks like. It has it broken down by race and ethnicity. You can also see that where your economically disadvantaged percentages have been. They've ranged anywhere from 20% all the way up to 30%. And this year, we show right now, based off of the student data that we had this fall, that ranges about 25.4% of your overall student population. When we look at the number of students that you have within the area, we've got about 225 students that are currently residing outside of your boundaries that attend Piedmont. And that's about 4%, which again is a fairly low percentage. And know that the largest percent, almost all of that, is tied to children of staff. And so just making sure to kind of clarify that. Again, we do see school systems that have anywhere from 10%, sometimes upwards to 15% of transfers that come in. So that's a fairly low percentage. When we look at the overall student population, about 2,600, a little over 2,600 are residing within the Piedmont city limits. About 1,828 that are within the Yukon city limits. And then you do have a number of students, about 17% of your overall student population that reside within that Oklahoma City city limits area. So one of the things we do is we want to evaluate the amount of housing activity that's taking place within the district. And then we will look at certain things specifically to that to evaluate what we think is going to happen in the next few years related to growth. So when we look at the breakdown within the district, you can see there's about 26 active subdivisions. Those are highlighted in green. 300 homes that we show that are currently under construction right now. And then we'll reference this vacant developed lots. Those are those that are ready to be built on. So they've got utilities, roads, everything ready to go. Could be started tomorrow type of thing. And then in yellow are those that we reference that are futures. Those are conceptual, have potentially been platted, future developments that are out there that we want to make sure if we've got some numbers that are referenced that those are accounted for. And then in red, in that red outline, we'll just reference subdivisions where there is some groundwork activity, utility activity currently taking place. So we have about 9 subdivisions that we show a lot of utility work or dirt work taking place, and that's about another 1,400, almost 1,500 lots within the area. So we'll kind of break that down into kind of the individual developments. So you'll see the Brook development, again, we'll break it down into referencing the total number of lots that are in those developments. Again, we're referencing about those 102 vacant developed lots that are there. The amount of activity that's currently taking place that we documented was about 26 homes that were under construction. The other thing that we want to make sure we evaluate as we talk through numbers is to evaluate how many homes are occupied within that subdivision, and then tracking how many students that we have that have been geocoded that we know are coming to the district. And so right now within that community of again 262 occupied homes, we've got a student yield of 0.698, meaning we have basically 7 students for every 10 homes in that development. And so that gives us kind of an idea as we're tracking kind of how many students how many families are moving into these new developments. As we keep moving forward, it helps us with our future forecasts when we're analyzing additional development and future forecasts that are going to be taking place. So again, just outside of that is Northwood Village. Again, same kind of concept, 487 total lots, 135 futures that are out there, 13 homes that are under construction. Again, when we look at how many homes, almost 300 homes that are occupied in that development, we've got a little bit smaller yield at that 0.441. And again, price point there is around $276,000 is the starting point in that development there. Again, kind of in the existing Northwood zone currently right now, you got Village Verde. Again, few homes that are under construction. Again, that 217 occupied homes within that. Several vacant developed lots left to be built in that community, but again, 0.7, so seven students for every 10 homes there. And then Bison Creek, you'll see about 23 homes that are under construction there, 223 occupied homes. Price points are kind of ranging anywhere between that $235,000 to almost $450,000. And again, we're referencing that yield there closer to 3 students for every 10 homes that are in that Bison Creek zone. And then as we get into Stone Ridge, a tremendous amount of activity taking place in that region. Again, you've got Nichols Creek that references about 543 total lots, showing about 13 homes that are under construction right now. Again, referencing that number of homes at 376 occupied homes, and a breakdown of somewhere between 3 to 4 students in each one of those homes, or groups of 10 homes there. And then we do have a multifamily area that's just to the south of that is a potential of about 385 total futures that are out there. We potentially could be broken down 312 apartment units and about 73 townhomes within that future potential development. And then again, you've got a future that's out there, potentially about 105 total future lots that could be a part of this. This was platted well over a year ago, but you can see that they do have groundwork underway on that specific lot. This was a satellite picture that was taken in November, so we know that there's quite a bit of activity taking place right now with streets being cut in currently right now. And then just to the south of that is a development that's been there for quite some time, this Tuscany Lakes, referencing about 464 total lots. Quite a bit of homes under construction currently in that area, about 34 currently right now. Again, we're only showing a yield of 0.2 right now, but I would say that as we continue to see that development continue to be developed and more families move in, that yield most likely will grow closer to some of the yields I'd referenced in some of the other developments. Again, we've got Cornerstone Creek, 450 total lots there. Again, about 13 homes that are under construction. Still very early on in that overall development. Referencing, they've closed about 47 homes in the last 12 months. And again, this is much more affordable housing in this region, and the student yield there is at that 0.367 currently right now, but that most likely is going to continue to grow. And then we've got a few futures that are out there. Again, this Dove Crossing potentially is going to be 689 total lots. And again, you're seeing groundwork underway on about 218 of those lots in that initial phase one that they've got there. And then there also is another future that's out there that we've got identified as the Tall Grass Trails that has the potential of about 363 total futures that are there, a little over 80 acres total. And again, we just had some paperwork, a preliminary plat was approved just this past summer. So no groundwork taking place currently right now, but again, seeing a lot of things in place to prepare for activity over the next few years. And then only a few more of these that I'll go through. You've got Rose Park that's got about 295 total futures that are there. Plat was just approved in September, but you can already see the groundwork underway, roads already in. This is D.R. Horton, so of course with some of these builders, we like to refer to them as production builders. If we see the D.R. Hortons and the Lennars, we know they're going to be building at a faster pace than what we see some of the smaller local builders build. So they typically will build anywhere from 40, 50, 80 homes a year, and they're just built for that. That's kind of how they go. And again, the price point for that D.R. Horton community is somewhere in that close to 250 to 300,000 range. And then the Green Hill development with that 113 total lots that are a part of that. Lennar development, again, price point potentially in that 220 to 250 plus range. And they do anticipate that their developments are going to be having families in there spring of 2026. In Bluegrass Meadows, streets are in. You can see that about 89 total future lots that are a part of that. And again, kind of referencing the starting of lot delivery as we get into the really in the time frame we're at right now in the early 2026. So anticipate seeing some residential activity there. And then we do have a future that's out there, the Triple S Ranch. It's got 255 total futures that are out there. No movement on that in any way, shape, or form right now. But again, we want to make sure we just track what those potential lot numbers could be down the road. Most of these are those conceptual futures and those kind of things. When we think about forecast, that's not anything that's going to most likely take place in the next 2 to 5 years. Potentially going to be further out as we kind of get into that 5, 6, 7, probably 10-year time frame. And a little bit of multifamily, not much. Again, just some small duplexes and some things that are in the area. But we'll track all of those. Again, we're just trying to track yield information, anything that will tie into some of our numbers. Birth rates. So, you do see a number of births that have taken place in the region. We're going to track that number of births, and we're going to track your kindergarten numbers and try to evaluate based off of those two numbers. We know there's going to be some changes and shifts that are going to potentially happen, but when you take those two and you backtrack them several years, it creates kind of a ratio. And so we take that ratio and we'll try to keep that fairly consistent in the next few years. So as we know with the population growth that we've dealt with, we're seeing that. We're also anticipating a number of new families that are moving into the area, so those birth rates have incrementally increased because of that. So we are anticipating enrollment growth in those kindergarten areas over the next several years related to that. And then we're also going to just do an analysis of what's happened the last several years. So we're going to look at some of your largest grade groups. Again, we're going to, your in yellow is going to be those largest grade groups, followed by green, which just references that second largest grade group. We always want to track that to see if at any point in time those largest grade classes are potentially going to graduate out. And as they graduate out and potentially could have a smaller grade class that follow them, there could be a small drop in enrollment in any given year. But again, as we're tracking your pre-K and kinder numbers, and as long as those in combined continue to come in strong over the next several years, that's going to continue to push growth. So again, most of your grade groups are still kind of in those lower grade groups. So that's continuing to push out, saying you're going to continue to have growth for the next several years. Down below is just the growth cohort, so it just references if anything falls below a 1, it's referencing that there was a potential drop from the previous year grade group. If you had a positive 1.036, that's just referencing the grade group that was in your first grade class. As they moved up to second, it was positive. So if it falls below a 1, then that would show kind of a smaller grade group that did not move on and potentially had a drop. But again, in Piedmont, with the growth that you've had, everything has been positive, so everything is up above a 1.
So, back on that slide, so, for example, all our grades are bigger.
Just your pre-K and your kinder there, yes. So as we go, we take all of those things into consideration. We're evaluating kind of the housing activity, that yield analysis. That helps us build in that enrollment forecast by grade. And again, we're going to evaluate averages as well as increases. And so you can see kind of where we anticipate numbers being on that far right corner, in that far right column there, kind of being in that range of 2 to 3%. Over the next several years. You've got several of those developments that have a lot of dirt work and lots being prepared. So we do anticipate significant growth in the housing market in the region over the next few years. If many of those lots are delivered and we continue to see migration and movement out into the region, into this region, we do anticipate that you're going to have some larger percentage increases to 3 or 4%. And again, when you think about where you're at currently right now, and you think about 5 years out, you're going to be somewhere in that 6,400 student range. By the time you get to that 29, 30, 31 timeframe, and then long term, about 10 years out, potentially could get up to close to about 7,400 students, as long as we continue on that type of growth path. And then this just references, and I know we'll get into the attendance boundary scenarios, but these are the boundaries as they exist today. So you take into consideration kind of the growth pattern based off of the planning areas. So that mapping system has planning areas with all those subdivisions. We have numbers allocated to each of those planning areas that are tied to those student enrollment numbers that we have. And so as we see growth in many different areas, again, Stone Ridge should not be a significant surprise, as that Again, it's kind of a summary where we're at. Again, a little over 11 students. This all tells below where we were starting. Those lots.
So I guess my question is like, is there like a confidence interval or like a plus or minus sort of? I mean, I know you've been doing this for a long time, and that's probably pretty.
You know, we try to stay within those. We have to, so we do try to be fairly. Try to stay.
So the other thing that, and you may have mentioned this and I missed it and all that, but when you think about the high school, right? What's our trend that we've seen from students taking online? You know, is it going up or down in the, I mean, 2020, you can throw that out, right? But
It's gone down since we did.
yeah,
It's gone down. Probably 200 students from the first when we got here. I think we had 450 that were online, and we're down to where we're serving about 250, the max.
Yeah, I mean, and we're trying to stay around that 200 mark, but the requests are crazy. We get anything from, hey, can I do half a day virtual, can I do a day virtual, or even can I take this individual class virtually?
okay.
So as I know we have a lot of current enrollment, right, too, so a lot of these kids aren't even on campus most of the day, right? So how do we factor that into, like, when we're looking at this, we're looking at not just enrollment or number, but what's our capacity, volume? We're looking to build more, are we capacity? How do we factor that in with the high school?
Question. I mean, we've talked about it, you know, because what I believe in, I think what we as a team believe in, the best place for our kids is with our teachers. We got some great teachers in those buildings to build the connections, the relationships. But, you know, if we were to, in essence, like flip a switch and say, okay, do we have room for those 250 back in the building? It gets a little challenging. That.
So
Well,
what Mark's saying is we want our kids in school. If all those kids came back tomorrow, our class sizes would be off the chart, huge.
Right.
We are not prepared to handle that. Our middle school and our high school are next to or we're gonna have to have.
So, I mean, from a planning standpoint, you almost have to assume that you're gonna have a button seat, right? You have to have room for all of them. But because you can't depend on virtual enrollment for 200 every.
Well, we could have more than 200 like that we wanted between virtual and concurrent enrollment, we'd have a lot more than we have. What we're saying is we want them, as many here as we can, because we think they get a better education if they're in front of a teacher. It has been my experience, it takes a motivated student and a good family unit in order to make that work. And at high levels, kids just aren't ready for that.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that it can't work, because it does for 200, 250, but I can tell you that if I had my brothers, they'd all be with us. Now, that doesn't work out for everybody, so it's not gonna be perfect. I think you have something.
Yeah, and just confirming what you said, like we're doing that right now for next year, and we take all 1,617 kids, and we build our master schedule for every one of those students to be in the building first, and then we look at our trend over the past 3 years of virtual, and we come up and we build that as well, so that when HR comes and we have that conversation, this is where we predict that we're going to be at for that year. So.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of kids that are concurrent that my daughter, I mean, she didn't come to high school her whole senior year, and she left with 30 credit hours.
Right.
So she enrolls as a sophomore, which saves me a lot of money, right? So there's a lot of students that are going down that path because they can leave here with 30 college credit hours.
Sure, and
Enrollment and AP
It's
classes are game changer for our kids.
I mean,
Both my kids did 30-hour
Yeah.
thing. We would love every kid that wants to go to college to leave here with 30 hours, and they can,
Right.
if they do it right. And we can absolutely make that happen.
and it's just another opportunity not to have a butt in seat, but.
And I just, from my perspective, I'm trying to figure out, when is high school gonna be out of capacity? And, when does our current enrollment, I guess, exceed plus or minus or virtual, right? Makes sense?
yeah, it does. And, I think Drew said it. If we wanted to, we could expand the virtual numbers. It's just like you're talking about, Jared. I mean, what an incredible opportunity for juniors and seniors to be able to take concurrent courses. They're also, academically and emotionally ready for that. But it's a little different scenario when you're talking about maybe a 14 or 15-year-old freshman or a sophomore taking virtual, where they're not getting any kind of socialization or even with their peers. That's where we see the challenges. We learned from COVID, for sure.
And you asked, how can we gauge that? He had it on the board just a few minutes ago. It shows the 10-year plus or minus 1.5%. That's what we're looking at. That's
And
why we have
that's
these
seat, that's Chinese and seat. That number you get.
Yes, that's enrollment, yes.
We have to use those numbers, the projected enrollment, not really depend on.
Well, we use it all. So we use what they've done for the last 3 years, which is a good indicator. But we use these for a baseline moving forward. Like, we know that when 3 years ago when I got here, we were in a bind in our intermediates. We had 700 plus kids at that intermediate that was built for 600 kids. So the answer was to put a bunch of portable buildings out there. Looks terrible. I hate it. I hate that kids have to leave the building to go out into another building. We've solved that problem. In August of this year, we'll have, and you can look at what he's predicted, it's been 400 to 600 for the next 10 years in those two buildings. That's great, but it's not great at middle school and high school. We've got what Aaron would say, you would say we're close to capacity at the middle school,
I
right?
do not have an empty classroom
Yeah.
in all classes.
So it's how full are those classes gonna get in the meantime, and are we gonna, then what this board has to decide, based on all his information, all her information, is do we need another school, or do we need more classrooms built on this school? That's a bond issue.
Yeah.
It's just 4 years now. You want to go to your next slide?
Yeah,
Wait,
so
you
we
guys
can-
have anything else? I want him to show your boundaries.
So a few things that I would reference. You can see kind of we'll do two different things. One is we're analyzing the elementary schools potentially down the road over the next several years, potentially the conversion of the early childhood center into an elementary school. The new elementary school, Scissortail, that will be built here in this general area. So we've got kind of that overall district boundaries established in 5 elementary boundaries. So again, Piedmont, kind of older established. You've got Stone Ridge that's been here, but has all that growth and challenge that needs to be, we need some relief provided there. So what we've done is tried to isolate these specific areas, concentrate some of that growth into what will be 2 elementary schools in this south eastern quadrant of the district, concentration of those 2 areas. And then you'll see kind of whenever we do that, potentially what that breakdown by enrollment is over the next 10 years. So again, when you think kind of in that time frame, as we get to the 28-29 time frame, looking at again, Scissortail does have some development in it. Some of those futures are still going to take some time to kind of build out. But again, it provides that necessary relief for Stone Ridge Elementary. So you, again, 28, 29, 379, all the way up to about 560. But then when you think about what the long-term build-out potentially would be, many of those are going to be in that 500 to 700 range, long-term. Our end goal is to try to figure out a plan when you take into consideration those elementary boundaries, potentially having those elementary boundaries feed into the intermediate school campuses. So again, because of the concentration of development and students that are going to be at Stone Ridge, you're going to potentially have Stone Ridge Elementary and the early child program elementary that would ultimately feed into the new Stone Ridge Intermediate. And again, a few less students by campus, but we would propose, based off of alignment, having Scissortail Elementary, Northwood Elementary, and Piedmont Elementary that would feed into Piedmont Intermediate. And again, if you look at that based off of those enrollments, again, you would see Stone Ridge is actually a little bit lower to begin with in the first few years. But when you take into consideration all that development and all those lots that I talked about in the presentation, the demographic presentation, those are going to potentially catch up fairly quickly so that you will reach a point in time, most likely as we get out to that 8 to 10 year time frame where that starts to become more balanced. And again, looking at somewhere around over 1,000 students all the way up to potentially about 1,100. Students, and so you're looking at a breakdown of somewhere between 500 and 600 students when we look at that comparison.
Questions? What these guys, Hudson and his team have done is amazing work. This is painstaking all the way down to housing additions to make this what it is. I think on if you look right there at the intermediate forecast, the 10-year forecast, in year 10, PI will be 621 and Stone Ridge intermediate will be 519. That's a pretty good number. Those are good numbers. But if we didn't have one of those intermediates, if our voters hadn't voted Stone Ridge Intermediate at this last bond, we'd be looking at, that's right, we'd have, it'd look like Shantytown, and so we are glad to have our voters vote that, and we are glad to have that building, and we appreciate what you've done, Hudson, so thank you. I want to, before we stop, I want to see, Lisa, did you have anything you want to add to any of that? No? Okay. Just want to give you a chance. What were you gonna say?
This data helps us, right? This kind of gives us an idea of what we're facing and what's coming at us and where we need to plan for next. I mean, this is a good problem to have in my,
There are a lot of school districts that are losing enrollment. I know of a 4A district right now that's looking for $500,000 to make payroll by the end of the year, and we don't have that problem.
we don't, the challenge is just an opportunity, and it's, I don't see any, we're just gonna keep growing, it's coming. And if interest rates drop, it's gonna get worse. And when, the state legislature right now is talking about open transfer, the floodgates will open if there's legislative law that changes that. I'm telling you, people will come here because of the work that you guys do every day and making a great school district. So that's another challenge that,
Yeah.
may come our way that, Norman's already changed theirs. They've got open transfer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's totally open.
Do you have any literature on that? Yeah, I'd like to read them.
Well, the state law is now open transfer. So what keeps the floodgates closed in Piedmont is that we're over capacity in all of our schools. We won't be next year.
Right.
You set the capacity. I make a recommendation, you set the capacity. So we'll have some opportunity for some transfers, but, we're not looking to, make our way through this on transfers because we've got lots of houses being built and 7 kids for every 10 homes. That's a lot.
Go from 4% to 10%, right?
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. All right. On to item 4, business items. Discuss and take possible action regarding the approval to set the 2026-2027 intermediate school boundaries and the realignment of the 2027-2028 elementary school boundaries.
I will make a motion to approve action regarding the approval to set 2026-27 intermediate school boundaries and the realignment of the 27-28 elementary boundaries.
I'll second.
Motion by Neil. Second by Matt. Can we vote?
Matt,
Yes.
Neil, yes. Jared,
Yes.
Derek, and Lane are not.
All right. Item B, discuss and take possible action regarding the 2024-2025 audit. Looking for a motion.
I will make a motion to approve action regarding 2024-25 audit.
Second.
Motion by Neil, second by Matt. Can we vote?
Matt,
Yep.
Neil, yes. Jared,
Yes. Item C, discuss and take possible action regarding the memorandum of understanding with Canadian Valley Tech for the work-based learning program for technology student internships.
In 2 sentences or less, what do you got?
This is the agreement between us and Canadian Valley to give their kids school credit, more or less, their school credit, Canadian Valley school credit.
So remember, we did the internship last month for us. We're just opening it up so that, and this is you got to understand, I was looking to see if our tech guy was listening. Hopefully he's not. It's hard to keep tech guys because they can make a lot of money other places. And so getting these interns and training them up, and they like the culture that Tommy's got on his team and in our district, and we often get to keep them. But it is a challenge. Am I right?
Yes, sir. That was more than 2 sentences.
surprising about
That is an oxymoron, right?
I make a motion, we approve the memorandum of understanding with Canadian Valley Tech for the work-based learning program for the technology student internships.
second.
Second by Neil. Can we vote?
Matt,
Yep.
Neil, yes. Jared,
Yes. Item D, discuss and take possible action regarding revision to Travis voice and data agreement, including automated attendant numbers.
Tommy, why do we need to amend this?
Sure. So whenever I designed the system initially, I didn't take into account how many virtual numbers were needed for all of the attendance we needed to spin up. So this is just adding additional virtual numbers to our contract that y'all signed last board meeting.
So this isn't adding like a, please hold, dial 1 to 2.
So it's adding the numbers to get to that service, yes. So those are attendance. We're adding the numbers to get to those attendance.
Make a motion to approve action regarding revision of Travis voice and data agreement, including automated.
Second.
Motion by Neal, second by Matt. Can we vote?
Matt?
Yep.
Neil, yes. Jared?
Yes. Item E, discuss and take possible action regarding amendment agreement with Follett and Destiny for library inventory system to add Stone Ridge Intermediate School effective 7/1/2026, $2,718 from general fund.
So we use this in all of our schools now. It's pretty standard across the state. And we want to approve this now so that when the appropriate time, which is coming soon at SRI, that we'll be able to make a PO and have that ready to go in that school over the summer. So when we have a librarian in there, they can hit the ground running.
Make a motion to approve. Discuss and take possible action regarding amended agreement with Follett Destiny for library inventory system to add Stone Ridge Intermediate School effective 7/1/26 in the amount of $2,718 from general fund.
Motion by Matt, second by Neal. Can we vote?
Matt?
Yes.
Neil, yes. Jared?
Yes. Item F, discuss and take possible action regarding agreement with Skyrider E-Rate C2 for cable installation at the new sites. The total of $214,517.17. E-Rates, Piedmont's portion is $85,828.47 from the bond fund.
So Tommy, remind the board who Skyrider is and why we use them.
Yes, sir. So the next three items, so it's E-rate season, right? So E-rate and the OUSF are the two government entities that fund us in a lot of ways. E-rate funds Category 2. That's what C2 stands for. E-rate covers 60% of the cost. We pay 40%. So all of the construction things, we've pulled all of the data out of construction. We're paying for it out of bond through E-rate and OUSF. Skyrider specifically is a company out of Louisiana that they're the lowest bid every time. They're great to work with. Used them for years. They did the middle school. They specifically come in and take 3 to 5 days to completely cable and run a school.
Is this just pulling wire?
Yes, sir. That's what Skyrider's for.
I'm surprised you didn't volunteer.
Yeah, hundreds of thousands of feet of cable.
And just to remind you what E-rate is, that is federal money. So every school gets a certain amount of money. It's a 60-40 split depending on your demographics, I believe.
Correct. And if you're rural or not. We're labeled a rural school.
Nice.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve possible action regarding agreement with Skyrider E-Rate C2 for cable installation of the new site, total $214,571.70. E-Rate Piedmont's portion, $5,000.
Second.
Motion by Neal, second by Matt. Can we vote?
Matt?
Yes.
Neil, yes. Jared?
Yes. Item G, discuss and take possible action regarding agreement with Aero IT C2 agreement to provide battery backups and networking equipment for our new sites. Total of $233,688.55 E-rate, and Piedmont's portion is $93,475.42 from the bond fund. Same. Assuming same thing.
So it's the exact same
This
thing.
is just for the
and
battery backup portion.
this is where I'd like to brag on the guys. So in our department, the guys have learned through the years that they've been here. This does not include any install. We're doing the install of every access point. There you go. See, I was coming to that. You just got it. Yeah. So we're installing every access point. We're installing every switch. In the next couple board meetings, y'all will approve the PO for the new line boards. We'll install all of those as well. So the only install that we're putting in is for the wiring. So, but this right here is just the equipment. We are doing 100% of the install.
So it saves us dollars.
Yeah, yes, hundreds of thousands.
Nice job.
Good.
Bringing value.
I'll make a motion to approve action agreement with Arrow ITC2. Agreement to provide battery backups and networking equipment for our new sites, total of $232,000. Rate amount.
A second. Motion by Neil, second by Jared. Can we vote?
Yes.
Neil, yes. Jared?
Yes. Item H, discuss and take possible action regarding amended agreement with Cox Communications to add Stone Ridge Intermediate School effective July 1st, 26, covered by the E-rate.
So this is the, so all of our sites are connected with Cox Metro E. This is where OUSF comes into play. So E-rate and OUSF fund 100% the connection between the buildings and our internet connection. This is adding a Metro E connection to the SRI, as soon as it gets built. They are just charging us the $715 a month, I believe it was. They're just charging us that. They're not adding any special construction costs since we have so many sites. So not that we're saving money, but we're definitely saving the taxpayers money.
I make a motion, we approve the amended agreement with Cox Communications to add Stone Ridge Intermediate School July 1st, 2026. Motion by Jared, second by Neil. Can we vote?
Matt?
Yes.
Neil, yes. Jared?
Yes. Okay, item V. Or item 5, consent agenda, sorry. Discuss, then vote to approve all consent items. These items may be approved by one board motion unless any board member desires to have a separate vote on any or all of these items. Any ones that you want to?
No, they're all just standard stuff that you've voted on before. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Is that a question?
No, I was just. You guys really taking this to some
Kansas.
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items A through I.
Motion by Neil,
Second.
by Matt. Can we vote?
Matt?
Yes.
Neil, yes. Jared?
Yes. Item 6, financial report.
Okay, you're gonna have to bear with me because I don't have much of a voice today.
Were you
So-
yelling at the auditor? Is that how you lost your voice? No wonder we passed. Just
So
kidding.
I'm just gonna go through, if you have questions, I'll answer those, but I'm just gonna highlight the revenue. It's where the biggest changes have been over the last month. General fund collections are up 13.7 million. 9.6 of that is taxes. County formula is another million of that. So you can see that money's flowing in now that we're at the beginning of the year, calendar year. Building fund collections are up 1.3 million. All but $200 of that is tax money. Child nutrition, another claim got paid, so we're up 93,000. Bond fund is exactly the same. And then sinking fund collections are up 8.9 million, and that is taxes as well.
Any questions?
Nope.
Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate it. Great job in the audit.
Thank you.
Okay, item 7, executive session. Vote to
I'll make a
convene or not to
motion
convene?
To not convene.
Okay,
Second.
motion not to convene by Neil, second by Matt. Can we vote?
Matt?
Yes.
Neil, yes. Jared?
Yes. All right, moving on to Item 8, discuss and take possible action on employment as listed on attachment C. I make a motion, we approve employment as listed on attachment C.
Second.
Motion by Jared, second by Matt. Can we vote?
Matt,
Yes.
yes?
Yes. New business?
No new business.
No new business. Superintendent's report, item 10.
So there's our enrollment comparison for January to February. We're down a few students. That's typical ebb and flow. Most of those kids were from the high school. So that's in your packet if you want to look at it closer, or if you have any questions, but that is just the way it works, where we work. I'm very proud of the fact that there were probably 250, 300 people at this response to intervention conference in Oklahoma City last week, 2.5 days. We took 50 of them.
Wow.
And there they are. And it was, I got to attend parts of all 3 days, and it was a great conference. I want to remind you and anybody listening that we are spending all of our time working on response to intervention, which says when a kid doesn't learn, what do we have to do to teach them what they don't know? The only way to do that is to assess them and then to reteach. And that's the short answer to this. This conference we've sent, Brenda, would you say 150? I know we've done 2 years of 100. About 100 and then 150 PLC. And we will continue to do that. So it's RTI, PLC, Capturing Kids' Hearts with CKH, and then we will roll in the reading, science of reading next year. That will be another thing that we fold into our professional development core. So there's that. I'm proud to tell you that on next Monday, we have a professional day. And half of that day, we are spending time making sure we've asked all of our teachers to do, to engage in professional learning communities. But we haven't taught them how to do that. We haven't sent them, like Brenda said, we've got about 150 of our 300 staff members that have attended a professional learning community works conference. We're going to spend a half day getting everybody up to just basic understanding, and we're doing that with administrators within the district. We're not paying anybody for that, but I'm excited about it. Brenda has spent a large amount of time the last 2 weeks working on that, and we're going to finalize that presentation tomorrow in E-Team, and then we'll go out next week and do it. This is what Eddie's been doing for the last couple months. So this is the flooring, but it's been a complete remodel, not a complete remodel, it's been a refresh on our locker rooms for soccer and football at the football field. And those floors, you can tell, are not nasty concrete anymore. Those lockers are new lockers, right, Eddie? And do you have any, I'm going to show them the others, but do you have anything you want to share as I go through these? Turn that on. Yeah.
Yeah, as we go through those, you can see the bottom. We built bases for all these lockers. When you got into the locker room to see that the bottoms were all rusted out because they were sitting on a concrete floor, they drew moisture in. Darnell and his guys came in, built bases, and installed the lockers ourselves. And now we're to the point where we've got all the epoxy and the paint flakes on, and we're putting a coat of epoxy on today. It'll be dried up. We're going to bring in custodial crew for one last cleanup, and our student athletes and coaches will be in here by the end of this week.
And if any of you saw that before,
Yeah.
Yeah, it was bad.
it was hideous.
It's horrible.
So,
job.
great job,
Looks great.
Eddie. And that
Good job,
completes
Mr.
my
Zook.
report.
Can I add something?
Yep.
The only thing I'll say is I got the opportunity and privilege to volunteer for the Dog Day this last week. And so it's a fantastic program. I mean, if the dads out there, if you're listening, you should volunteer. It was one of the best days I've had in a long time. Got to spend a lot of time with some boys, got to spend a lot of time with some students, got to meet a lot of teachers, got to see the inner workings of how we do what we do every day. And I think every school offers it, right? And so it's a wonderful program. If you're out there listening, you should definitely volunteer.
Have you join our Watchdogs program. So ECC all the way up through our intermediate have very active programs that you can sign on to do.
I did it years ago.
You
But
did.
The principal at the elementary school at the time, Miss Campbell.
Oh, it's
man,
bad.
I was,
We had a great
I
time.
was sweating at the end of the day. It was,
Wildcat Wake Up for everyone.
it was good. It was good. It is great. I love the investment in our staff, growing our teachers. It's yes, we're here to grow students, but we need to grow our people too, and I think that's important. And I love the investment in our teachers and our staff, and it just makes us better, right? How do we get to the next gear?
I told those 50 people we met, they met every day after. The last day I met with them, and one of the things I said is, our board has graciously agreed to spend about $1,000 when you include the sub, about $1,000 a person on these people. And we are going to continue to highly professionally develop our people. And other people are going to come calling. And we expect that they're going to stay because of our culture. And so all this ties together. And I believe, we'll lose a person here or there, but for the most part, Piedmont's a place to be. Am I right, Ms. Balancefin? Okay,
Good. It's a good culture.
yeah,
It's all about culture.
that's right.
Good job. All right. Item 11. Adjournment.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Neil, second by Matt. Can we vote?
Matt?
Yep.
Neil, yes. Jared?
Yes.